Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely monumental fracture point moment in modern tech. On June 9, 2026, the landscape of artificial intelligence didn't just take a step forward, it basically shattered the path we were on. Anthropic dropped Claude Fable 5. Now, if you're thinking, oh great, another standard chatbot update to help me draft emails or summarize long PDFs, you've got to completely reset your expectations. We are talking about the systems that literally guard our bank accounts, our local power grids, and our hospitals. Fable 5 is the first publicly available version of Anthropic's weapons-grade Mythos AI. It's a massive paradigm shift into a categorically different kind of machine. And honestly, uncovering exactly how it works reveals a reality that's as fascinating as it is terrifying. Let's get right into it.
All right, part one, the rabbit and the lion.
Think about the AI we use every single day. Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini. They're friendly, general-purpose assistants hanging out in your browser. They answer trivia, fix your Python code, plan your trips. You can think of them like a friendly house rabbit, right? Basically domestic, super helpful, and structurally built so they can't do anything truly dangerous. But the Mythos model family, which is the actual beating heart powering Fable 5, was built for a highly specific, very dangerous capability, finding zero-day flaws entirely autonomously. It doesn't wait for your step-by-step instructions. This is definitely not a rabbit you just pat on the head. This is the wild animal outside the house.
Aaron Rose over at tech-reader magazine actually hit the nail on the head. He said, calling it anything softer would be like looking at a lion and calling it a large house cat. It's a brilliant way to put it, because look, while they might share some underlying technical DNA, and they might have evolved from the same lineage of large language models, they operate on completely different levels of raw power and intent. So assuming Fable 5 is safe just because the previous generation was friendly, yeah, that's a profound misunderstanding of what has just been engineered.
Let's move to part 2, inside the Mythos engine.
To really wrap our heads around Fable 5, we have to understand its core directive. Mythos was engineered from the ground up for one specific thing: finding zero-day vulnerabilities. If you're not familiar, these are the hidden, unpatched flaws in our global critical infrastructure that literally no one, not even the original creators, know about. Imagine a hidden, unlocked backdoor in the software running a city's water supply that human engineers just completely missed for a decade. Finding these manually is painstakingly hard. You have to hold an insanely complex software system in your working memory, reason through how all the microscopic moving parts interact, and then chain those tiny, seemingly harmless weaknesses into a full, devastating exploitation path. Mythos, it does this entirely on its own.
To prove it could actually do this before launching, Anthropic quietly ran a restricted, highly classified program back in April 2026 called Project Glasswing. They teamed up with infrastructure giants like AWS, Microsoft, and Apple. Get this, during its first few weeks, the Mythos preview model autonomously found over 10,000 high and critical severity vulnerabilities. 10,000 in just a few weeks. To put that staggering number into perspective, discovering that many critical world-altering flaws would traditionally take highly skilled human security teams decades of continuous, grinding labor.
So, this sheer volume of autonomous discovery literally flipped the global cybersecurity defense paradigm overnight. Historically, the absolute hardest part of cyber defense was just finding the flaws in the first place. It was like searching for a needle in a digital haystack. But with Mythos, that bottleneck instantly shifted. The AI basically just hands you a bucket of needles. The problem isn't finding the vulnerabilities anymore. The problem is simply patching them fast enough before someone else figures out they exist. Humanity was suddenly thrown into a breathless race against this infinite, auto-generated list of critical flaws.
And when you look at the SWE BenchPro scores, which is essentially the absolute gold standard benchmark for autonomous code repair, you can clearly see the generational leap here. Fable 5 scored a massive 80.3%. Compare that to Opus 4.8 at 69.2% or GPT 5.5 at 58.6%. I mean, wow! Fable 5 isn't just spitting out little snippets of code to help you along. It's handling highly complex, multi-day autonomous software engineering tasks with zero human check-ins. You could literally give it a massive objective on Monday, and it works tirelessly through the system architecture to hand you a functional solution by Thursday. It operates way less like a software tool and much more like a highly capable, autonomous colleague.
Okay, part 3, guardrails and gatekeepers.
Now you might be wondering, how on earth did a company release a weapons-grade AI to the general public? Well, they partially closed the cage door. It's absolutely crucial to understand that Fable 5 is not some watered-down, neutered model. It knows exactly how to build a devastating cyber exploit. The knowledge is 100% in there.
But Fable 5 has this invisible layer of classifiers built on top. If you try to query high-risk domains, like cyber exploitation or biology or chemistry, these classifiers intercept the prompt right before the model hands you the blueprint. It effectively slaps your hand away and silently reroutes your query to the safer, older Opus 4.0 model instead. Meanwhile, the raw, unconstrained version, Mythos 5, is totally locked down, strictly restricted to heavily vetted cyber defenders and infrastructure providers.
But beyond the software classifiers, Anthropic is using raw economics as a gatekeeper. Weapons-grade tools come with weapons-grade price tags. Fable 5 costs $10 per million input tokens. And if you're new to the term, just think of tokens as fragments of words or lines of code the AI processes. Then it's $50 per million output tokens. That is exactly double the cost of the previous frontier model, Claude Opus 4.8. This exorbitant price tag acts as a deliberate economic moat. It ensures Fable 5 targets serious enterprise security teams and developers who have massive budgets, legitimate use cases, and strict accountability, rather than just casual consumers looking to mess around on a whim.
Let's move to part 4, the dual-use dilemma.
Right now, the whole AI industry is fiercely split into two opposing camps on how to handle this unprecedented power. Anthropic is going with the capability restriction route, actively building those hand-slapping classifiers right into the model to block dangerous queries from ever processing. OpenAI, on the other hand, who released their GPT 5.5 cyber model a month earlier in May 2026, went a completely different path: democratization with verification. Their model isn't constrained by internal classifiers. Instead, they control access externally through rigorous identity verification and nonstop monitoring of who is using it. So one is altering the machine, and the other is policing the user. Both of these strategies are completely unproven at a global scale, and both are trying to solve the exact same terrifying problem.
And here is the absolute core of that problem. We arrive at this terrifying fundamental realization. Defensive and offensive cybersecurity use the exact same knowledge. The identical AI capability that lets a noble defender find and patch a catastrophic zero-day vulnerability in a local hospital's life support network, that is the exact same capability a malicious attacker uses to find and exploit it. There's just no version of a weapons-grade AI that is natively only useful to the good guys. The capability itself has absolutely no idea whose hands it's in.
Which brings us to part 5, the trillion-dollar contradiction.
Let's pull back and look at the highly compressed timeline here, because it really highlights a massive ethical contradiction. Back in April 2026, Anthropic privately seized the sheer, unvarnished power of Mythos during Project Glasswing. Then in May, their biggest rival, OpenAI, aggressively drops an unconstrained cyber model. So what happens? On June 4th, Anthropic publishes this highly publicized, super urgent academic paper begging for an international pause on all frontier AI development, warning of catastrophic risks. But then, literally just 5 days later, on June 9th, they release Fable 5, the most powerful publicly available AI in the world, and simultaneously file confidentially for an IPO, valuing the company near $1 trillion. Talk about whiplash. You beg the world to pause development on a Thursday, and then release a weapons-grade AI and file for $1 trillion payday on Tuesday.
Now, their justification for this contradiction relies entirely on the arms race argument. Anthropic states neutrally that they genuinely believe AI is moving way too fast and needs strict global governance. But they argue that if they don't release their most capable models and keep their market dominance, they're just going to cede this world-altering technology to competing actors or nation-states who have far fewer moral scruples. It's a very real, incredibly heavy argument that's shaping our modern world right now. But historically speaking, it is the exact same justification used during the Cold War nuclear arms race. If we don't build it, they will.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a deeply unresolved question. Because this technology is no longer theoretical. It's not just living in white papers or restricted research labs anymore. The lion is literally at the door, the cage is only partially closed, and the consequences are going to ripple through our banks, our infrastructure, and our personal lives. Since there is no version of a weapons-grade AI that is naturally exclusively useful to the good guys, we're forced to ask, whose hands is it currently in? And perhaps far more importantly, who actually gets to decide? The ultimate fate of this technology belongs to far more than just the tech companies building it. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning what comes next.